Becky Andree is our guest speaker for today, and Becky's going to be presenting on developing early career professionals. So with that, Becky, we turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Brenda. I'm happy to be here today. Just a quick little background on me. I own my own company, Vertical Leadership Consulting, and we specialize really in three things. I mean, we basically do leadership development, but it's a group of PhDs that are also practitioners that specialize in how to develop leaders' complexity of thinking, how to create high quality connections within the workspace. And the third thing is really around collective sense making. So working with executive teams to collectively develop their awareness on what is going on and where are the opportunities within the organization. So happy to be here today. And I'm going to start with a poll. So hopefully the poll is showing for each of you. If you could just take a moment to think about, it's not showing. Let me try to relaunch it again. Can you see the poll now? All right. So what's the most important thing for early career professionals? Do you think it's more important for them to develop their awareness, to see the bigger picture, to focus on having experiences, so being assigned opportunities to try new things? Or do you think it's more important for them to have a focus on relationship, learning from others and exploring knowledge deeper? So I'll give you a few moments just to do that.
Where's the all button?
I know.
Hey, Becky, do you want to read the question and the choices again for those people who maybe can't find chat, or do you want to use chat instead?
Yeah, they can use chat as well. So what is the most important thing for early career professionals? Awareness, experiences, or relationship? So it looks like most people have had a chance to do the poll. So I'm going to go, oh, there we go. We got the last person. I know they're all really important, Andrea. So I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share results. So most of us felt that relationship was a little bit more important. Next, experiences, and lastly, awareness. And so we'll revisit this, but this is kind of the core of what I'm going to be talking about today. And a lot of what's been happening as we've gotten to this moment is we've outsourced a lot of things. We've outsourced knowing, awareness, and learning. Someone else is telling us what we're supposed to be doing. And it's been creating some problems. And so, especially for early career people. So whether you're someone that's mentoring an early career person or an early career person, we're going to talk about kind of how that works. And I've been doing leadership development for over 25 years. I've done everything from frontline supervisor all the way to the executive designed global programs that are still in use today. So this development piece, I'm really very aware of what needs to happen. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen, and we're just going to talk about, this really applies to all of us, but is really so important for early career. So I want to invite you just to listen. I'm gonna read a poem that's one of my favorite poems. It's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. And you might even want to close your eyes or just focus on the picture so that you can really listen to the words. And I want you to think about what's resonating for you as I read through this poem. So chapter 1, I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. So the poem I just shared with you is by Portia Nelson, and I would invite you just to type in the chat maybe what resonated for you as you were thinking about this poem. And for me, it really, as you're kind of typing in some things, for me, it really defines this growing up or this experience that we have when we have new things, all right, where we don't know what we don't know. And then we start to maybe have some failures and things start to become a little bit more clear. And Bethany, absolutely, the switch from not my fault to it's my responsibility. And once we become accountable and we can see it, we actually can get out a lot faster. And there's lots of things going on. Now, the one thing is that really strikes me about the time period we're in right now is most adults are kind of in chapter 3. All right. We see it, our eyes are open, but we fall into these habits. All right. But for early career, oftentimes they're in chapter 1 or chapter 2. All right. And so we have to remember that you can't skip a chapter. You have to have this experience through each one. And so we're going to talk about that today. And part of what this poem is talking about is there's really 2 things going on. When, especially in early career, there is the being, learning the various skills. What do I need to be able to do in order to do this job or to do the next job that I'm going to be? And when we think about learning and development, most things, about, I would say 98% of the offerings, focus on skills, all right? And those are very necessary, but if you've read anything from the World Economic Forum, we now know the shelf life of skills is about 18 months, all right? And so we've got this whole industry on learning that is focused on building skills that may not be relevant in 24 months. The second aspect of what's going on is actually more important. It's the becoming piece. It's understanding things deeper. And unfortunately, we have people coming in who are early career right now that grew up in a learning or an educational environment that didn't always encourage them to go deeper. What it encouraged them to do was to learn enough to pass the test, all right? And so we have a lot of people with good test-taking skills, but maybe not people that are really good at becoming or knowing that they need to do things differently. And so today I use a formula with early career where I help them kind of get on this journey of becoming. And I help them understand how experiences, relationship, and awareness are going to set them on the path for growth for their entire career. And as I go through this, there might even be some things that resonate for you that you think about. Maybe some past experiences you've had and how revolutionary they were for you. Or you might even be thinking about how you can create some of this for some of your early career. So the first part I want to start with is experiences. And I want you to kind of think back in your own life, what were those experiences that really shaped you? For some of us as women, it's having our first child is usually that really definitive moment that has shaped kind of who we are and who we're becoming. For other people, it might be that first career or that first promotion. It might be getting married. It might be getting divorced. I mean, there could be a whole range of emotions or experiences. It's not always positive, but we can typically think about those 3 experiences that we've had that were very defining. And so when we're working with early career, what we have to think about is how we help them make their growth sustainable by moving at a pace that's challenging, but not overwhelming. All right. So we want to find kind of this sweet little spot. So when we're creating experiences for them, I like to call it the Goldilocks zone. You don't want it too cold where it's boring, right? I mean, they are coming in with knowledge and experience and they want to be able to apply it. We don't want it too hot, so you don't want it too challenging where they don't even know how to get started or what to do, but we need it just right. It's just enough beyond what they're currently capable of that it's exciting, it's challenging, and it's going to be a little bit of a stretch for them. So one of the first things that we can do for early career is really think about the experiences that we can give them. And when we're giving them the experiences, making sure to let them know that they need to be using this experience to be developing, all right? And being clear about developing skills or developing a deeper knowing or understanding, because oftentimes early careers come in with some great ideas, very innovative, very creative. They're not constrained by kind of the rules or experiences. I mean, experiences do shape us and kind of can get us to be less open to things. So they're still very open. And so we want them to use these experiences to know deeper. All right. If I'm a good collaborator, there's always a growth edge to collaboration, to see collaboration in a new way, to experience it in a new way. And so we want to have those experiences just right, but also be reminding them to use those for a deeper knowing. And when we think about the autobiography in 5 short chapters, we see this different experience, right? We experience the whole in different ways. We experience our accountability in it in different ways. And like I mentioned before, we have to go through each of these chapters. You can't skip a chapter. You can't go from chapter 1 to chapter 5. All right. You have to go through these experiences. And so when we're creating these experiences, we also have to remember, oh yeah, they're in chapter 1. And my job is to get them to chapter 2. Okay. Makes sense? The second part of the equation is relationship. While the experience shapes us, all right, our relationship to things change. Our relationship to the experience, our relationship to people, and our relationship to how we know changes. And so we really want early career people to understand that part of growing up is we're releasing, we're learning, we're expanding. We need to be thinking about ourselves as we're happily a work in progress. With every experience, we're getting a chance to start as a seed, grow into a stem, and then become a flower. But then there's also some of this relearning of there can be some deaths to move on to the next part. And we need to be able to release and learn. So being able to start thinking about having the relationship with things that's going to shift and evolve. And that's part of the process. And so how does our relationship shift? Well, this is the part of where my PhD research is and where most of my consulting focuses in on is this adult development piece. And I want you to understand that there are these different focuses. So there's a different way in which we interpret every experience, all right? So when we're adolescents and about 6% of the adult population is still here, we see from an individual focus. And oftentimes it's felt as kind of selfish, all right? Because they haven't connected with the collective. But you start out just seeing from an individual focus. Then society puts some pressure on you, peers put some pressure on you, your family hopefully puts some pressure on you. And through that pressure, you kind of move into this collective focus where you're now a part of a group. And so some teenagers get here already. And that's why their peer groups are so important, because they're learning how to be socialized. And this is a really important aspect, because this is what helps make sure that we have good community, strong community ties, and people are working together. All right. And then there's this shift that can happen. And so about 35% of adults end up going into this, where they are able to see more systems, so they move into an individual focus again and begin to see themselves separate from the collective. And they see the benefits of the collective focus, but they are starting to create their own individual view. Well, yes, and I see it a little bit differently. And this systems thinking, there's a lot within this. So there's different levels that can be here, but you do have very much, what do I think? All right. And then you move back into a collective focus. And this is where I might classify them as an elder, and less than 1% is there in the population. And a lot of it happens because we don't have rituals or routines that help develop this. So we have people that are of an older age, but because they haven't been part of rituals or kind of guiding them through some liminal spaces, oftentimes are stuck in the socialized or the collective focus that's earlier on, and won't ever reach being an elder, right? And we are seeing that in today's world across the globe. And it used to be when we lived one with the land, there was these rituals that guided us into these elder roles, but we don't have that today. So we have very few adults that reach this. But when you're working with early career, it's just really important to remember where they are. All right. So if you have someone who's in chapter 1, all right, they're still in an individual focus, very much an adolescent. It's not my fault. All right. And so you have to help them have a different relationship. I have to have them see, I have to move them into at least 2 where they're pretending they don't see it, but at least it's kind of there. All right. And then I'm moving them into chapter 3, but most of your early career are going to be in chapter 1, chapter 2, maybe chapter 3. All right. Or they might be at the very end of chapter 2, ready to move into chapter 3 pretty quickly. And so we have to think about these small movements that we help them have and think about those relationships. And I'm going to go through an example. So don't worry, I'm going to make it much more practical for you. The third aspect is awareness. So I want you just to type into the chat, what do you see in this picture? Cruella, good. Good. All right, so some people see the young woman, some people see the old woman, all right? And so awareness is one of those things. So we are facing, a lot of my colleagues will say, oh my gosh, we have so much VUCA today. We have more VUCA than we ever have. We have more volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I actually disagree with them. I think hunting a saber-toothed tiger was pretty VUCA. I think what has shifted and changed is that we are not developing our awareness. All right. We outsource a lot of our awareness to metrics, to other people. We outsource our learning to other people. And so we haven't developed the capacity to be aware. Now, there's this double-edged sword with awareness, because if I tell you this is a picture of a young lady, I will have kind of put in your brain, and that's what your brain is going to see. And so it's going to be much harder for your brain to see the old lady. So when we're developing awareness with early career professionals, one of the key things is to be thinking about how much should I be telling them? When should I be asking them questions? How do I help them develop their awareness without kind of limiting them by imposing my frame or my view on things? And so self-awareness is everything. It can mean the difference between a life of stagnation or a life that moves step by step towards ultimate freedom. And so it's a big part of whether we're early career, middle career, late career, is just becoming more and more aware. And we do have a problem seeming to do this in these concrete jungles that we're in. You know, if we go out into, if you go for a hike in the woods, all of a sudden you become much more aware of the smells and the sounds. And so we have to kind of begin to develop those in what we're doing. And so with early career, we can do this through some questions. So based on your experience, you know, the relationship, how am I learning? It's helping them become aware by asking a lot of questions. So what have you learned? What are you aware of now that you weren't before? And what might you choose to do differently in the future? And this awareness and this reflection actually helps support the brain in that movement of becoming, so that they can think more complexly and can be ready for to handle more complex tasks and ways of being. And what's interesting, when I am part of succession planning discussions, the thing that I typically hear isn't really about skills or competencies. It's about this becoming, that we have this innate sense that there are these different complexity levels that are required. And so some of what we have to do with early career is begin to help them understand through this equation that we're always becoming, all right? And so we have to use these experiences, our relationships, and awareness to help us continue to expand how we see things, so that we are becoming what is necessary for the next role. All right. And it's not like you can just go take a class and shift. The brain takes time. And so the brain shifts when it's ready. And so you have to use these experiences every time to help you. And so awareness, when we go back to the poem, you can see the awareness starts to shift, right? Being able to see the whole, being able to see my role in it, being able to see the choices that are available to me, and being able to be aware that I don't even have to go down that same street. There's another path, right? And so awareness shifts and changes. So again, with early career, you have to remember kind of where their awareness is, typically in chapter 1 or chapter 2. And you have to be thinking about, how do I help them move in just that small way? So I'm going to get really practical with you with an example. So let's say this is something early career people might hear. You have to manage your emotions better. You can't show that you're angry. You can't show that you're upset. You can't show that you're happy, or be that excited about it. And so I'm just going to walk us through how this might look if we were working with an early career that needs to learn how to manage their emotions better. So if we think about experiences, I'm thinking about getting them to understand, when do emotions get the best of you? All right. And depending on the circumstances, I might be giving some direct feedback, but it's more important for me, again, to kind of build in the awareness with the experiences to ask them, well, when do emotions get the best of you? And so they might say, well, I let my emotions get the best of me when I have to work on a project with Sally. She really annoys me. All right. Or we might even think about crafting an experience of, all right, so they might say, I get triggered in this one particular meeting. And so I might give them, an activity. I might say, okay, so when you feel yourself getting triggered, I want you to write down this complex math problem, fill it out, and then see what happens to your emotions, so that they can begin to have a different experience with it and develop new relationships. With the relationship, I might engage Sally, or I might engage this person in some questions. So what is it about Sally that triggers you? Is it really about Sally? Or are there possibly some insecurities that you might have? I might ask them to think about who doesn't create these feelings or triggers, and why, what's different. And so you can begin to see it's meeting them in whatever chapter they're in, but helping them begin to see things in a different way and have a different relationship with it. I also want them to have a relationship with learning. So what do I actually know about emotions? Like, what did I actually learn? How did I learn it? And getting them to think about, how could I learn about how emotions show up when we are triggered, right? And this early career generation, my gosh, there's everything on YouTube, TikTok. I can't believe what my son is learning on all of these platforms. So trust them. You can give them some guidance, but ask them, is there any TikTok video that comes up for you, or any YouTube star that maybe has talked about emotions, or you've seen use emotions in good ways or bad ways, and getting them to reflect on some of those things. And again, it's all about their relationship with what they're seeing, what they're learning. And then you might even go into their relationship with other people. Is there anyone that does manage their emotions well, that is an exemplar that you might want to be like? All right. And so getting them to pay attention to that person, developing a relationship with that person as a way to learn. And then awareness is really getting them to reflect. It's having them think about, what did you learn? So what are you learning as we're looking at how to manage your emotions? What are you aware of now that you weren't before? And what might you choose to do differently in the future, right? And so early career really needs to feel like they're valued, that that they have some agency. And so what we can do is through this formula, really help them have those things, and really also set up the opportunity for this growth to happen, this becoming to happen, because we are facing really complex problems in this world, and we do not have enough adults that have the complexity of thinking to be able to handle them. And we see a lot of that playing out in some of the public discourse that's going on right now. So it's really important that we help these early career get on this path so that they can be growing and becoming what we need them for the future. So it's really about experiences, relationship, awareness equals growth, all right? Getting them in the habit of using these different avenues to make sure that they're always continually growing. And if you're working with early career, it's using kind of this poem to think about, where are they at? What can they see? And where do I need to help them shift and move to? And how can I use experiences, relationship, and awareness to help support that? All right. Oops. So I just want to leave you with one quick final thought. Too many people remain a caterpillar, and the world needs you to become a butterfly. And you can probably think about those people that got stuck. And it's not just about acquiring skills or knowledge anymore. It really is about a deeper knowing, a deeper exploration, so that we can show up and have more of this understanding and complexity of thinking that will help deal with some of these challenging problems. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to go just two more things. One, I do have some upcoming events if you wanted to attend. The best way is to sign up for the newsletter, and then you get these information. I am doing a Becky Live next week where I'm going to be talking about potential. What is it and how to develop it? And so if you wanted to register for that, I'd love to have you for that. I do Becky Live every month. So October is about connections, where I'm going to be talking about high quality connections. Why are some connections draining versus others energizing? In November, I'm going to be talking about tension. I've been working with leaders a lot lately about how we are embedded in tension and how to use it to create energy rather than it consuming energy. And then in December, I'll be focusing on learning, which is really that critical element of the future of work. And if you're in Lansing, I'm going to be doing a live event in October where I'm going to be talking about new thinking. I'll be talking about complexity of thinking. And if you want to connect with me, I've got things, I put my LinkedIn in the profile, but I'm going to stop there and see what questions we have.
All right, and before we open it up to questions, I'm just going to let everyone know we're going to stop the Facebook Live broadcast. So thank you, Facebook community, for watching. Give me just a second to stop